I am Meredith Campbell, 32 years old, and I still remember the exact moment my family's faces changed from mockery to shock. Standing there in my soaked designer dress, water dripping from my hair after my own father had pushed me into the fountain at my sister's wedding, I smiled. Not because I was happy, but because I knew what was coming. They had no idea who I really was or who I had married. The whispers, the laughs, the pointed fingers, all about to be silenced forever. Before I continue this story, where are you watching from? If you've ever been the family scapegoat, please like and subscribe because what happened next changed my life forever. Growing up in the affluent Campbell family of Boston meant maintaining appearances at all costs. Our 5-bedroom colonial house in Beacon Hill projected success to the outside world. But behind those perfectly painted doors lay a different reality. From my earliest memories, I was always compared unfavorably to my sister Allison. She was 2 years younger, but somehow always the star. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" became the soundtrack of my childhood, played on repeat by my parents, Robert and Patricia Campbell. My father, a prominent corporate attorney, valued image above all else. My mother, a former beauty queen turned socialite, never missed an opportunity to remind me that I was inadequate. When I brought home straight A's, Allison had straight A's plus extracurricular achievements. When I won second place in a science competition, my accomplishment was overshadowed by Allison's dance recital that same weekend. The pattern was relentless and deliberate. "Meredith, stand up straight. No one will ever take you seriously with that posture," my mother would snap at family gatherings when I was just 12. "Allison has natural grace," she would continue, placing her hand proudly on my sister's shoulder. "You have to work harder at these things." During my 16th birthday dinner, my father raised his glass for a toast. I remember the anticipation building, thinking maybe this once I would be celebrated. Instead, he announced Allison's acceptance into an elite summer program at Yale. My birthday cake remained in the kitchen, forgotten. The college years brought no relief. While I worked diligently at Boston University, maintaining a 4.0 GPA while working part-time, my parents rarely attended my events. But they traveled 3 states over to see every one of Allison's performances at Juilliard. At my college graduation, my mother's first comment was about my sensible career choice in criminal justice. "At least you're being realistic about your prospects," she said with a tight smile. Meanwhile, Allison's arts degree was praised as following her passion. These 1,000-paper cuts continued into adulthood. Every family holiday became an exercise in endurance. Every accomplishment minimized. Every flaw magnified. It was during my second year at the FBI Academy in Quantico that I made the decision to create emotional distance. I stopped sharing details about my life. I declined holiday invitations when possible. I built walls higher than our family home. The irony was that my career was flourishing spectacularly. I had found my calling in counterintelligence, rapidly ascending through the ranks with a combination of analytical brilliance and unflinching determination. By age 29, I was leading specialized operations that my family knew nothing about. It was during a particularly complex international case that I met Nathan Reed. Not on the field as one might expect, but at a cybersecurity conference where I was representing the Bureau. Nathan wasn't just any tech entrepreneur. He had built Reed Technologies from his college dorm room into a global security powerhouse worth billions. His systems protected government agencies and corporations alike from emerging threats. Our connection was immediate and unexpected. Here was someone who saw me, truly saw me, without the distorting lens of family history. Our courtship was intense but private, conducted between my classified operations and his global business empire. "I've never met anyone like you," Nathan told me on our third date as we walked along the Potomac at midnight. "You're extraordinary, Meredith. I hope you know that." Those words, simple but sincere, were more validation than I'd received in decades of family life. We married 18 months later in a private ceremony with only 2 witnesses, my closest colleague Marcus and Nathan's sister Eliza. Our decision to keep our marriage private wasn't just about security concerns, though those were legitimate given our positions. It was also my choice to keep this precious part of my life untainted by my family's toxicity. For 3 years, we built our life together while maintaining separate public identities. Nathan traveled extensively for business, and my position at the FBI grew increasingly senior until my appointment as the youngest ever Deputy Director of Counterintelligence Operations. Which brings me to my sister's wedding. The invitation arrived 6 months ago, embossed in gold and dripping with presumption. Allison was marrying Bradford Wellington IV, heir to a banking fortune. The event promised to be exactly the kind of excessive display my parents lived for. Nathan was scheduled to be in Tokyo closing a major security contract with the Japanese government. I can reschedule, he offered, seeing my hesitation. No, I insisted. This is too important for Reed Tech. I'll be fine for one afternoon. I'll try to make it back for the reception. He promised, even if it's just for the end. And so I found myself driving alone to the Fairmont Copley Plaza Hotel, my stomach knotting with each mile. I hadn't seen most of my family in nearly 2 years. My sleek black Audi, one of the few luxuries I allowed myself, pulled up to the valet stand. I checked my reflection one last time. Sophisticated emerald green dress, understated diamond studs, a gift from Nathan, hair in a classic updo. I looked successful, confident, untouchable. If only I felt that way inside. The Fairmont's Grand Ballroom had been transformed into a floral wonderland for Allison's special day. White orchids and roses cascaded from crystal chandeliers, and the afternoon light filtered through gossamer draperies. It was exactly the type of over-the-top display my parents had always dreamed of. I handed my invitation to the usher, who checked his list with a slight frown. Miss Campbell? We have you seated at table 19. Not the family table, of course. I nodded politely, already understanding what that meant. My cousin Rebecca spotted me first, her eyes widening slightly before her face arranged itself into a practiced smile. Meredith. What a surprise. We weren't sure you'd make it. Her gaze slid pointedly to my empty side. And you came. Alone. I did, I replied simply, not offering explanations. How brave, she said with manufactured sympathy. After what happened with that professor you were dating, what was his name? Mom said it was just devastating when he left you for his teaching assistant. A complete fabrication. I had never dated a professor, let alone been left by one. But this was the Campbell family specialty, creating narratives that positioned me as the perpetual failure. Your memory must be confusing me with someone else, I said calmly. More relatives approached, each interaction following the same pattern. And Vivian commented on my practical haircut and how it was sensible for a woman in my position to give up on more stylish options. Uncle Harold asked loudly if I was still pushing papers for the government, and whether I had considered a career change, since those jobs never pay enough to attract a decent husband. My cousin Tiffany, Allison's maid of honor, approached with air kisses that deliberately missed my cheeks. Meredith. God, it's been ages. Love the dress. Is it from that discount retailer? You always were so good at finding deals. She didn't wait for an answer before continuing. Allison was just saying she wasn't sure you'd come. You know, since you missed the bridal shower, and the bachelorette weekend, and the rehearsal dinner. Each event had conflicted with critical operations I couldn't disclose. I had sent generous gifts to each with heartfelt notes. Work commitments, I said simply. Right, your mysterious government job. She made air quotes around the word mysterious. Bradford's cousin works for the State Department. He says those administrative roles can be so demanding. I just smiled. Let them believe I was a clerical worker. The truth would have shocked them into silence. But that revelation wasn't mine to share yet. My mother appeared, resplendent in a pale blue designer gown that probably cost more than a month of my substantial salary. "Meredith, you made it." Her tone suggested I'd completed an arduous journey rather than a simple drive across Boston. "Your sister was concerned you wouldn't come." Again. "I wouldn't miss Allison's wedding," I said. Her eyes performed a rapid inventory of my appearance, looking for flaws to highlight. Finding none obvious enough, she settled for, "That color washes you out." "You should have consulted me before purchasing something so bold." Before I could respond, a commotion at the entrance signaled the arrival of the bridal party. Allison made her entrance to the reception, now officially Mrs. Wellington, on the arm of her banker husband. She was undeniably stunning in a custom Vera Wang gown with a cathedral train that required 2 attendants to manage. My father beamed with pride, looking at Allison as if she were the sun and moon combined. I couldn't remember him ever looking at me that way. The maitre d' directed me to table 19. Positioned so far from the main family table that I nearly needed binoculars to see it. I was seated with distant cousins twice removed, my mother's former college roommate, and several elderly relatives who couldn't quite place who I was. "Are you one of the Wellington girls?" asked a hard-of-hearing great-aunt, squinting at me through thick glasses. "No, I'm Robert and Patricia's daughter," I explained. "Allison's sister." "Oh!" Her face registered surprise. "I didn't know there was another daughter." That stung more than it should have after all these years. Dinner proceeded with elaborate courses and flowing champagne. From my distant vantage point, I watched my family holding court at the center table, laughing and celebrating without a glance in my direction. The traditional family photos had been taken earlier, without me. I'd arrived precisely on time as indicated on the invitation, only to be told by the photographer that they'd moved the schedule up and had already finished. During the maid of honor speech, Tiffany spoke movingly about growing up with Allison, who was like the sister I never had, pointedly ignoring my existence entirely. The best man joked about Bradford finally joining the Campbell family dynasty and how he was trading up by marrying the Campbell golden child. I maintained my composure through it all, sipping water rather than wine to stay clear-headed. I needed my wits about me. Nathan had texted an hour ago, landing soon. Traffic from airport heavy. ETA 45 minutes. When the dancing began, I attempted to join a circle of cousins, only to have them subtly close ranks, leaving me on the outside. I retreated to a quiet corner, checking my watch. Nathan would be here soon. Just a little longer. My mother approached, champagne flute in hand. "You could at least try to look like you're enjoying yourself," she hissed. "Your perpetual sulking is becoming a topic of conversation." "I'm not sulking, Mother. I'm simply observing." "Well, observe with a smile. The Wellingtons are important people. And your sister has made an exceptional match. Don't embarrass us." As if I were the embarrassment in this scenario. "The least you could have done was bring a date," she continued. "Everyone is asking why you're here alone." Again. I didn't bother explaining that my husband was worth more than the entire Wellington family fortune combined. That revelation would come soon enough. The reception was in full swing when my father tapped his crystal glass for attention. The crowd quieted as he took center stage beside the elaborate ice sculpture of intertwined swans. Today, he began, his voice carrying the practiced projection of a seasoned attorney, "Is the proudest day of my life. My beautiful Allison has made a match that exceeds even a father's highest hopes." A smattering of appreciative laughter followed. "Bradford," he continued, turning to my new brother-in-law, "you're gaining not just a wife, but entrance into a family built on excellence and achievement." He raised his glass higher. "To Allison, who has never disappointed us. From her first steps to her graduation from Juilliard with highest honors to her charitable foundation work, she has been nothing but a source of pride." My chest tightened. Not because I expected to be mentioned. I knew better. but because of the implicit comparison. Allison had never disappointed them. The unspoken conclusion was obvious. As he continued extolling Allison's virtues, I quietly slipped away toward the terrace doors. I needed air, space, a moment to regroup before Nathan arrived. The evening sun was setting over the hotel's famous courtyard fountain, casting golden light across the rippling water. I had nearly reached the sanctuary of the terrace when my father's voice boomed from behind me. "Leaving so soon, Meredith." I turned slowly. He stood 10 feet away, microphone still in hand. The entire reception looking in our direction. My mother and Allison flanked him, identical expressions of disapproval on their perfect faces. "Just getting some air," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Running away, more like it," he said, and the microphone amplified his words to the entire room. Classic Meredith. Disappearing when family obligations become inconvenient. A flush of heat crawled up my neck. "That's not true, isn't it?" His voice had taken on the cross-examination tone I remembered from childhood. "You've missed half the wedding events. You arrived alone, without even the courtesy of bringing a +1. The room had fallen completely silent. "I'm sorry if my attendance alone offended you," I said carefully. "She couldn't even find a date," my father announced to the room. And scattered nervous laughter followed. 32 years old, and not a prospect in sight. "Meanwhile, your sister has secured one of Boston's most eligible bachelors." The laughter grew louder, encouraged by his showmanship. "Dad," I said quietly, "this isn't the time or place." "It's exactly the time and place," he retorted, advancing toward me. "This is a celebration of success. Of family achievement. Something you would know nothing about." Each word was a calculated barb, designed to penetrate years of carefully constructed armor. I glanced at my mother and sister, looking for any sign of intervention. They simply watched, my mother with a tight smile, Allison with barely concealed satisfaction. "You think we don't know why you're really alone? Why you hide behind that mysterious government job?" my father continued. "You've always been jealous of your sister's accomplishments. Always the disappointment. Always the failure." He was inches from me now, the microphone lowered, but his voice still carrying in the hushed room. Decades of resentment had transformed his face into something almost unrecognizable. "Dad." "Please stop," I whispered, aware of hundreds of eyes on us. "Stop what? Telling the truth? The truth that you've never measured up? That you're an embarrassment to the Campbell name?" His voice rose with each question. Something inside me snapped. Not toward anger, but toward a strange, calm clarity. "You have no idea who I am," I said quietly. "I know exactly who you are." He snarled, and then it happened. His hands connected with my shoulders, a forceful shove that caught me completely off guard. I stumbled backward, arms windmilling. But there was nothing to grab onto. For a suspended moment, I felt weightlessness, then the shocking cold as I plunged backward into the courtyard fountain. Water engulfed me. My carefully styled hair collapsed, my silk dress billowed then clung, and my makeup surely ran in rivulets down my face. The physical shock was nothing compared to the realization that my own father had just publicly humiliated me at my sister's wedding. The crowd's reaction came in waves, first shocked gasps, then uncertain titters, finally erupting into full-throated laughter and even scattered applause. Someone wolf whistled. Another voice called out, "Wet t-shirt contest after the garter toss." More laughter. More applause. I pushed myself up, water streaming from my ruined dress. My heels slipped on the fountain's slick bottom as I found my footing. Through dripping strands of hair, I saw my father's triumphant expression, my mother's hand covering a smile, my sister's undisguised glee. The photographer snapped picture after picture, capturing my humiliation for posterity. This would be in the wedding album, passed around at future family gatherings, another chapter in the Meredith the Failure narrative. But something unexpected happened in that fountain. As the cold water shocked my system, so too did a realization. I was done. Done seeking approval. Done accepting mistreatment. Done hiding who I really was. I stood fully upright in the fountain, water cascading from my designer dress. I pushed back my soaked hair and looked directly at my father. "Remember this moment," I said, my voice carrying across the suddenly quiet courtyard. Not shouting, not emotional, just clear and precise. The smile froze on my father's face. Something in my tone must have registered because uncertainty flickered in his eyes. "Remember exactly how you treated me," I continued, stepping carefully toward the fountain's edge. "Remember the choices you made. Remember what you did to your daughter. Because I promise you, I will." I climbed out of the fountain with as much dignity as my soaked condition allowed. A stunned silence had replaced the laughter. Even my father seemed momentarily at a loss for words. The memory of a similar public humiliation flashed through my mind. High school graduation. When my father had interrupted my valedictorian speech to loudly comment that memorization had always been Meredith's only talent. The audience had laughed then too. I had shrunk into myself, becoming smaller. Not this time. I walked through the crowd, water dripping with each step, creating a trail across the expensive carpet. No one stopped me as I made my way to the ladies' room. No one offered help. No one spoke. And strangely, I was okay with that. For the first time in my life, I didn't need anything from these people. The ladies' room of the Fairmont was blessedly empty when I pushed through the door. I caught sight of myself in the gold-framed mirror, mascara streaked down my cheeks. Hair plastered to my skull, the emerald dress now a darker forest green where saturated with water. And yet I didn't feel defeated. I felt oddly liberated. My phone had been in my clutch, which thankfully I'd left at table 19 before the fountain incident. I retrieved it from a concerned-looking distant cousin who'd guarded it for me, then returned to the bathroom to text Nathan. "How close are you?" His response came immediately. 20 minutes out. Traffic clearing. "Everything okay?" I hesitated before typing. Dad pushed me into the fountain in front of everyone. 3 dots appeared instantly, disappeared, reappeared. Finally, "I'm coming." 10 minutes. Security team already at perimeter. I hadn't known he'd sent a security team ahead. That was Nathan, always thinking 10 steps ahead, always protecting what mattered to him. And somehow, incredibly, I mattered to him. The bathroom door swung open, and a young woman entered. One of Bradford's cousins, I thought. She stopped short when she saw me. "Oh, are you okay?" "I'm fine," I replied, straightening my spine. "Just a little wet." She hovered uncertainly. "Everyone's talking about what happened. It was really awful of your dad." Her unexpected kindness nearly broke my composure. "Thank you for saying that. I have a spare dress in my car," she offered. "It might be a little big, but that's incredibly kind, but I have a change of clothes in my car. A professional habit, always have backup options. Could you walk with me to the valet? I'd rather not wade through the crowd alone." "Of course," she said. "I'm Emma, by the way. Bradford's step-cousin from his mom's second marriage. Basically the Wellington family outlier." "Meredith," I replied, offering my dripping hand. "Campbell family scapegoat. Pleasure to meet you." She laughed, and somehow that small moment of connection steadied me. Emma ran interference as we made our way through the side exit to the valet stand. I retrieved my backup outfit from the Audi's trunk, a simple black sheath dress and flats I kept for emergencies. 10 minutes in a nearby restroom. And I'd managed to transform myself from drowned rat to reasonably presentable professional. As I applied fresh makeup, I thought about my life, my real life. Not the distorted version my family perceived. I had graduated top of my class at Quantico. I had led operations that saved American lives. I had earned the respect of hardened field agents and Washington officials alike. I had married a brilliant, kind man who valued me exactly as I was. None of that validation had come from the people currently celebrating in the ballroom. And maybe that was the point. Maybe true worth is only found outside the funhouse mirrors of toxic family dynamics. I checked my watch. Nathan would arrive any minute. For the first time, I was ready to stop hiding our relationship. Not because I needed my family to be impressed. That ship had sailed into the fountain with me, but because I was tired of diminishing myself to make them comfortable. My phone vibrated with a text from Nathan, in position. I took a deep breath, smoothed my replacement dress, and walked back toward the reception with my head high and shoulders back. Emma had returned to her table, but she gave me an encouraging thumbs up as I passed. The festivities had resumed in my absence. The dance floor was crowded, the bar busy, the cake waiting to be cut. No one noticed me immediately, which allowed me to position myself strategically near the main entrance. I spotted my mother first, holding court with several of her socialite friends, gesturing animatedly. As I drew closer, her words became clear. Always been difficult. We've tried everything with her, absolutely everything. The best schools, the best therapists. Some people simply refuse to thrive. Such a shame, agreed one of her friends. Especially with Allison being so successful. Same parents, same opportunities. Genetics are mysterious. My mother sighed theatrically. Robert and I have accepted that Meredith will never. She trailed off as she noticed me standing there. Clearly not still hiding in the bathroom, as she'd assumed. Meredith, she recovered quickly. You look dry. Yes, mother. I always keep a spare outfit handy. One of many professional habits. Her friends murmured uncomfortable greetings before finding urgent reasons to refresh their drinks. Was humiliating me part of the wedding itinerary? Or did Dad improvise that part? I asked quietly. Don't be dramatic, she hissed. You were trying to slink away, as usual. Your father simply lost patience with your antisocial behavior. Pushing your adult daughter into a fountain is not a normal response to perceived antisocial behavior. Perhaps if you had brought a date. Made any effort at all to participate in your sister's happiness instead of making everything about your mysterious job and your perpetually busy schedule, things would have gone differently. I studied my mother's face, searching for any sign of the protective instinct that should have been there. There was nothing but annoyance that I had disrupted her narrative. You know what's interesting, Mother? I've never once made anything about me. In fact, I've spent my entire life trying to take up as little space as possible in this family. And it still wasn't enough. A commotion at the entrance caught everyone's attention. The distinct sound of multiple car doors closing in rapid succession. The appearance of two men in impeccable suits conducting a subtle security sweep. My mother frowned. What's happening? If the Wellingtons arranged additional security without consulting us. I checked my watch. Right on time, I murmured. The sleek black Maybach had arrived, followed by two equally impressive security vehicles. The wedding guests had noticed now. Conversations pausing as attention shifted toward the entrance. Even the music seemed to quiet. My heart quickened despite my outward calm. After 3 years of marriage, Nathan still had that effect on me. And in approximately 60 seconds, my family would finally meet my husband. The double doors to the ballroom swung open with authority. 2 security personnel entered first. Marcus and Dimitri, I recognized, their alert eyes scanning the room with professional efficiency. They wore impeccable suits that couldn't quite disguise their military bearing. Whispers rippled through the reception. The father of the bride approached the security men with an affronted expression. Excuse me, my father began, puffing up his chest. This is a private event. If you're looking for the corporate conference, it's in the West Wing. Marcus simply looked through him as if he were transparent. Dimitri touched his earpiece and spoke quietly. Perimeter secure. Proceeding. And then Nathan walked in. My husband had always had a commanding presence, but today he seemed to fill the entire doorway. 6'2" with shoulders broadened by years of swimming, he wore a custom Tom Ford suit that subtly screamed wealth and power. His dark hair was slightly windblown. He'd probably come straight from the helicopter pad on the roof, and his jawline could have cut glass. But it was his eyes that always undid me. Intensely blue and laser-focused, they scanned the room in seconds before landing directly on me. The moment they did, his serious expression softened into the private smile reserved only for me. He moved through the crowd with the confidence of someone who never questioned his right to be anywhere. People instinctively stepped aside, creating a path directly to where I stood. I was vaguely aware of my mother beside me, her body going rigid as she realized this imposing man was heading straight for us. Behind him, for more security personnel had entered, positioning themselves strategically around the perimeter of the ballroom. Meredith, Nathan said when he reached me, his voice a warm bass that carried in the now hushed room. He took my hands in his thumbs brushing over my knuckles in our private gesture of connection. "Sorry I'm late." "You're right on time," I replied, feeling truly steady for the first time that day. He leaned down and kissed me, not a showy display, but a genuine greeting between partners. His hand moved protectively to the small of my back as he turned to face my mother. "Mrs. Campbell," he said with perfect politeness that somehow still conveyed zero warmth. "I'm Nathan Reed, Meredith's husband." My mother's face went through a spectacular series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, calculation, and finally a strained attempt at delight. "Husband," she repeated, her voice unnaturally high. But Meredith never mentioned. 3 years next month, Nathan supplied smoothly. "We keep our private life private. For security reasons." My father had pushed his way through the onlookers and arrived at my mother's side, his face flushed with either anger or embarrassment, possibly both. "What's the meaning of this?" he demanded, looking from me to Nathan. "Some kind of prank? Hiring security and an actor to create a scene at your sister's wedding is a new low, Meredith." Nathan's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. Only someone who knew him as well as I did would notice the dangerous glint in his eyes. "Mr. Campbell," he said, his tone deceptively mild. "I'm Nathan Reed, CEO of Reed Technologies. Your daughter and I have been married for nearly 3 years." My father's mouth opened and closed without sound. Reed Technologies was a household name, a global security firm worth billions that provided cutting-edge protection systems to governments and corporations worldwide. Even my technology-averse father would recognize it. "That's not possible," he finally managed. "We would have known." "Would you?" Nathan asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. "When have you ever shown interest in Meredith's actual life? From what I've observed today, and what she's shared over the years, your interest extends only to criticizing her choices, not understanding them." My sister had appeared now, her white gown making her look like an apparition floating through the stunned guests. Bradford followed in her wake, his expression torn between confusion and fascination. "What's happening?" Allison demanded. "Who are these people?" "Apparently," my mother said faintly, "your sister has a husband." "That's ridiculous," Allison scoffed. "She's making it up for attention." "On my wedding day." Nathan's arm tightened around my waist, not possessively, but supportively. "Mrs. Wellington, congratulations on your marriage. I apologize for missing the ceremony. International business obligations kept me in Tokyo until a few hours ago." His impeccable manners made Allison's rudeness stand out in stark relief. She flushed, looking uncertainly between Nathan, the security team, and the increasingly interested wedding guests. "Is this some kind of joke?" My father found his voice again. "You expect us to believe that Meredith, our Meredith, secretly married a billionaire tech CEO?" Supplied one of Bradford's friends from the back, who had apparently Googled Nathan on his phone. "Holy shit, that's really Nathan Reed. Forbes cover last month. Net worth estimated at $12 billion. A collective gasp rippled through the room. My mother swayed slightly, reaching for the back of a chair to steady herself. I don't understand. She whispered. Why wouldn't you tell us? For the first time, her question seemed genuine rather than accusatory. I almost felt sorry for her. When have you ever wanted to hear about my successes, Mother? I asked gently. When have you ever celebrated anything about me? She had no answer. As for me, Nathan continued smoothly. I've been looking forward to meeting the family Meredith has described so vividly. Though I admit, after witnessing your behavior today, I find myself rather, he paused, selecting his word carefully, disappointed. My father's face darkened. Now listen here, young man. No, Mr. Campbell, Nathan interrupted, his voice suddenly hard as steel. You listen. I watched from the terrace as you publicly humiliated your daughter. I saw you push her into that fountain. I heard the things you said to her. The blood drained from my father's face. Under normal circumstances, Nathan continued, such an assault would have immediate consequences. My security team was prepared to intervene, but Meredith signaled them to stand down. That's the kind of person your daughter is. Even after your despicable behavior, she didn't want to create a scene at her sister's wedding. The room had gone completely silent. Even the waitstaff had frozen in place. Fortunately for you, Nathan finished, my wife is a better person than I am. Because if anyone ever treated her that way again, my response would not be nearly so measured. The threat, though delivered in the most civilized tone possible, hung in the air like storm clouds. At that precise moment, as if choreographed for maximum dramatic effect, the ballroom doors opened once more. Two individuals in crisp business attire entered, their posture alerting me immediately to their identities even before I saw their faces. Marcus and Sophia, my most trusted team members from the bureau. They approached with purposeful strides, coming to a stop a respectful distance from where Nathan and I stood with my family. Director Campbell, Sophia said formally, using my official title. I apologize for the interruption, but there's a situation requiring your immediate attention. The title hung in the air for a beat before the whisper started. Director. Did she say Director Campbell? What department? My father's confusion was almost comical. Director of what? Some minor government office. Nathan's smile was razor-sharp. Your daughter is the youngest deputy director of counterintelligence operations in FBI history, Mr. Campbell. Her work has saved countless American lives and earned her the highest security clearance possible. More gasps. More whispers. My mother looked as though she might faint. Allison stepped forward, her bridal glow diminished by confusion and dawning horror. That's impossible. Meredith is. Meredith is just. Just what, Allison? I asked quietly. Just your disappointing older sister? Just the family scapegoat? Just the perpetual failure? She had no answer. The Meredith Campbell I know, Nathan said, his voice carrying easily through the silent room, is brilliant, courageous, and formidable. She has the respect of hardened field agents and government officials alike. She makes decisions daily that affect national security. He turned to look directly at my father. And for some inexplicable reason, she still cared enough about your approval to attend this wedding, despite knowing exactly how you would treat her. My father seemed to have aged 10 years in the last 5 minutes. The confident, bullying attorney had vanished, replaced by a confused old man trying to reconcile his lifelong narrative with this new reality. Why didn't you tell us? He asked, his voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. Would you have believed me? I replied simply. Or would you have found a way to diminish this too? His silence was answer enough. Marcus approached, holding a secure tablet. Director, I hate to press, but we need your authorization on this operation. I took the tablet, scanned the information, and made a quick decision. Proceed with option 2. But increase surveillance on the secondary target. I'll call in for the full briefing in 20 minutes. Yes, ma'am, Marcus replied, accepting the tablet back. The professional exchange happened in seconds, but its impact on the room was seismic. This wasn't play acting. This wasn't an elaborate ruse. This was real power, real responsibility, and I wielded it with casual competence. Nathan checked his watch. We should go. The helicopter is waiting. And we have the Tokyo team on standby for the video conference at 9. I nodded, then turned to face my stunned family one last time. Congratulations on your wedding, Allison. I wish you and Bradford every happiness. My sister seemed incapable of speech. Bradford, to his credit, stepped forward and offered his hand to Nathan. It was an honor to meet you, Mr. Reed. And you, Director Campbell. I hope we'll have the opportunity to get to know each other better in the future. His sincerity was unexpected and rather touching. I shook his hand warmly. I'd like that, Bradford. My parents remained frozen, decades of their carefully constructed narrative lying in shambles around them. Mr. and Mrs. Campbell, Nathan said with perfect courtesy. Thank you for the invitation. I apologize again for missing the ceremony. My father finally found his voice. Meredith, wait. We need to talk about this. We're your parents. We've always wanted what's best for you. We've always been proud of you. The naked attempt to rewrite history might have worked in the past. Not today. No, Dad, I said gently. You haven't. But that's okay. I don't need you to be proud of me anymore. And with that, Nathan and I turned and walked out of the ballroom, my security team falling into formation around us. Behind us, the whispers had erupted into full-voiced exclamations. The Campbell family would never be the same. And neither would I. The sleek black helicopter waited on the Fairmont's rooftop helipad, its blades already beginning their lazy rotation. As we approached, flanked by security, I felt a curious lightness. Decades of family baggage seemed to have fallen away, left behind in that ballroom along with my parents' shattered illusions. Are you okay? Nathan asked, his mouth close to my ear to be heard over the increasing rotor noise. Surprisingly, yes. I replied, better than okay. Before we could board, Sophia approached with a concerned expression. Director, there's been a development. The ambassador is requesting your presence at the embassy immediately. The surveillance package picked up anomalous signals. I exchanged a look with Nathan. This wasn't part of the evening's script, real or performance art. I asked quietly. Unfortunately real, she responded. Marcus is already coordinating with the field team. Time sensitive. I nodded, switching fully into professional mode. Reroute the helicopter to the embassy. Alert the duty analyst team, I want a full brief upon arrival. Already done, Sophia confirmed. Nathan touched my arm. Go. I'll meet you there. This seamless adjustment to crisis was the rhythm of our marriage, two high-powered careers occasionally colliding with personal plans. The difference was we supported rather than resented each other's responsibilities. As we turned back toward the roof access door, planning to descend and exit through the hotel's private security entrance, we found our path blocked. My mother stood there, slightly breathless from having apparently rushed up several flights of stairs. Her perfect coiffure had wilted slightly, and her immaculate makeup couldn't hide her pallor. Meredith, she said, her voice unusually uncertain. You can't just leave like this. We need to talk. I glanced at Sophia, who nodded discreetly and stepped back to give us a moment of privacy. I have a work emergency, Mother. National security doesn't wait for family reconciliations. National security, she repeated, as if tasting the words for the first time. You really are. What they said. A director at the FBI. Deputy Director of Counterintelligence Operations, I confirmed. For the past 18 months. Before that, I was assistant director for 3 years. She seemed to be struggling to integrate this information with her long-held image of me. But why the secrecy? Why not tell us? We would have been proud. I finished for her. Would you? Or would you have found a way to minimize it, compare it unfavorably to Allison's achievements, suggest I got the position through connections rather than merit? Her flinch told me I'd hit the mark. And the marriage, she pressed. 3 years, he said. 3 years. And you never thought to mention you had married one of the wealthiest men in the country. I noticed her emphasis on Nathan's wealth rather than any of his other remarkable qualities. Even now, status was her primary concern. Our marriage is private for multiple reasons, I explained patiently. Nathan's position makes him a potential target. My position involves classified work. And frankly, I wanted something in my life that wasn't subject to the Campbell family critique. The helicopter pilot signaled that we needed to depart. Time was running short. I have to go, I said. There's a legitimate national security situation developing. Will you come back? She asked, and for the first time in my adult life, I heard genuine uncertainty in her voice. To talk? To let us get to know you. The question surprised me. I studied her face, looking for the manipulative mother I'd known all my life. Instead, I saw confusion, hurt, and perhaps a dawning realization of all she'd missed. I don't know, I answered honestly. That depends on whether you're interested in knowing the real me, or just the successful version that now meets with your approval. She had no immediate response to that. Think about it, I suggested. Really think about whether you want a relationship based on who I actually am, rather than who you always wished I would be. I turned to go, but her voice stopped me once more. Your father would never admit it, she said quietly, but he was wrong today. What he did was unforgivable. It wasn't quite an apology, but it was more acknowledgement than I'd ever received. Thank you for saying that, I replied. I need to go. As Nathan and I boarded the helicopter, I glanced back to see my mother still standing there. A diminished figure against the vastness of the Boston skyline. For the first time, I saw her not as the intimidating matriarch of my childhood, but as a woman who had constructed her entire identity around appearances and social standing, and who was now facing the collapse of her carefully maintained illusions. I felt an unexpected pang of something like compassion. The embassy situation turned out to be legitimate but manageable, encrypted communications suggesting a potential security breach that my team efficiently contained within 2 hours. By 11 p.m., Nathan and I were finally alone in our penthouse overlooking the Charles River. Some wedding, he remarked, loosening his tie as we stood on the terrace. The city lights reflected off the water, creating a tapestry of glimmering patterns. Not quite how I planned to introduce you to the family, I admitted, slipping off my shoes. I thought it went rather well, actually, he said with a slight smile. The look on your father's face when Marcus called you director was worth the price of admission. I laughed despite myself. That was rather satisfying. Your mother followed you to the roof, he noted. That seems significant. I'm not sure what it means yet, I said honestly. 32 years of patterns don't change in an afternoon. No, he agreed, but revelations can sometimes create openings for change. He pulled me gently into his arms. Whatever you decide about your family, I'm with you. If you want to explore reconciliation, I'll support that. If you want to maintain distance, I'll support that too. This was what real love felt like, not the conditional approval I'd sought from my family for decades, but unconditional support regardless of my choices. Did you see Bradford's face when he realized who you were? I asked, changing the subject. I think he was mentally calculating how to get you to invest in his hedge fund. Nathan laughed. He seemed like the only decent one in the bunch. Recognized your title immediately and showed appropriate respect. I noticed that too, I admitted. Maybe Allison made a better choice than I gave her credit for. My phone buzzed with an incoming text. I expected it to be work-related, but instead saw my cousin Emma's name. OMG, the family is in complete meltdown after you left. Your dad keeps saying there must be a mistake. Your mom is weirdly quiet. Allison has locked herself in the bridal suite. Also, I googled your husband and holy crap. Also, I'm sorry they treated you like garbage all these years. Drink sometime? Signed, your new favorite cousin. I showed the message to Nathan, who raised an eyebrow. New favorite cousin. She was kind to me after the fountain incident, I explained. Before you arrived. Offered me a spare dress, helped me avoid the crowd. Small kindness, but it stood out. Sometimes allies come from unexpected places, he observed. Over the next hour, my phone lit up with messages from family members who had never bothered to call me before. Distant and suddenly remembered my birthday. Second cousins inquired about lunch dates. My father sent a stiffly formal text stating that we should discuss recent developments at your earliest convenience. I silenced the phone and set it aside. Those responses could wait. They're not reaching out to me, I told Nathan as we prepared for bed. They're reaching out to Director Campbell, wife of Billionaire Nathan Reed. Not to the person I actually am. Does that surprise you? He asked gently. No, I admitted. But it does clarify things. As I drifted towards sleep in the safety of our home, I realized that the day's events hadn't given me a family. I'd had one all along. Nathan, my trusted team at the bureau, friends who valued me for myself, the family I'd chosen rather than the one I was born into, and that I was discovering made all the difference. 3 weeks after my sister's wedding, Nathan and I sat in our favorite corner of Thinking Cup Cafe on Newberry Street. Despite our combined net worth and status, we enjoyed these small moments of normalcy, good coffee, quiet conversation, and people watching in a place where we weren't immediately recognized. Your mother called again yesterday, Nathan mentioned, stirring his Americano. That's the 3rd time this week. I nodded, watching pedestrians hurry past the window. The Boston Fall had painted the trees along Commonwealth Avenue in brilliant reds and golds. She left another voicemail. Invited us to Sunday dinner. Are you considering it? His tone was neutral, offering neither encouragement nor discouragement. I'm not sure, I admitted. Part of me thinks it's just damage control. The Campbell family image took quite a hit when word got around about what happened at the wedding. The story had indeed circulated rapidly through Boston's upper social circles. My father's law firm partners had expressed concern about his judgment. My mother had been quietly removed from the chairperson position of her beloved charity board. Apparently, publicly humiliating your FBI director daughter and alienating your billionaire son-in-law was bad for business and social standing. And the other part, Nathan prompted. I sighed, tracing the rim of my mug. The other part wonders if this might be the first genuine interest they've ever shown in knowing me. The real me, not their projection. The weeks following the wedding had brought an avalanche of family communication, emails, texts, calls, even handwritten letters. My father's alternated between defensive justifications and awkward attempts at reconciliation. My mother's were more directly apologetic, though still threaded with hints that I should have told them about my important position sooner. Allison had sent a single text from her honeymoon, "We need to talk when I'm back." Nothing more. The most surprising development had been my growing friendship with Emma, Bradford's step-cousin. True to her word, we'd met for drinks, where she'd confessed to always feeling like an outsider in the Wellington family, a sentiment I understood all too well. Her genuine interest in my work, what I could share of it, and her complete lack of agenda was refreshing. I've been thinking about something Dr. Chen said in therapy last week, I told Nathan, referring to the counselor I'd started seeing to process my family dynamics, about how setting boundaries isn't about punishing others, but protecting yourself. Nathan nodded. I like that distinction. I think I can have some form of relationship with my family, I continued, working through my thoughts aloud. But it needs to be on new terms. No more diminishing. No more comparisons. No more accepting disrespect to keep the peace. That sounds healthy, Nathan agreed. And if they can't meet those terms? Then I continue building my life with the people who can, I said simply. You, my friends, my colleagues, the family I've chosen. My phone buzzed with an incoming call, Marcus, my second in command at the bureau. I answered immediately. "We've got movement on the Richardson case," he said without preamble. "Surveillance picked up a meeting at the specified location. Team is in position." "I'll be there in 20, I replied, already gathering my things. Nathan was doing the same, accustomed to our interruptions. "Need a ride?" he asked as we stepped onto the busy sidewalk. "My meeting at MIT isn't for another hour." "Thanks, but I've got the bureau car today." I nodded toward the black SUV parked discreetly down the block where my security detail waited. He kissed me goodbye, and we headed in opposite directions, him toward his innovative tech empire, me toward the delicate work of protecting national security, each supporting the other's mission without resentment or competition. That evening, after a successful operation that resulted in the capture of a significant counterintelligence target, I made a decision. I called my mother. "Sunday dinner," I said when she answered. "Nathan and I will come. But we need to establish some ground rules first." Her immediate agreement was telling. The old Patricia Campbell would have bristled at conditions. This new version, humbled by revelations and consequences, was at least willing to listen. The dinner itself was predictably awkward. My father vacillated between defensive posturing and attempts at showing interest in my career. My mother tried too hard, nervously over-explaining the provenance of every dish as if hosting foreign dignitaries. Allison and Bradford arrived late. Their dynamic interesting to observe. He seemed genuinely pleased to see Nathan and me, while she maintained a careful distance, still processing her displacement from the family spotlight. But there were moments, brief, tentative moments, of something like genuine connection. My father asked thoughtful questions about a recent cybersecurity initiative Nathan's company had implemented for government agencies. My mother produced a box of my childhood achievements she'd apparently kept all these years: debate trophies, academic awards, science competition medals, evidence that perhaps she'd noticed more than she'd acknowledged. Most surprising was Allison's request to speak privately after dinner. In the garden where we'd played as children, my sister struggled visibly with words that didn't come easily to her. "I didn't know," she said finally. "About your job, your husband, your life. You never asked," I pointed out, not unkindly. "I know." She twisted her wedding ring nervously. I think I liked being the favorite. It was easier not to question it." Her honesty was unexpected. "Bradford says I need to examine why I felt threatened by your success," she continued. "Even before I knew about all this." She gestured vaguely, encompassing my career, marriage, and status. "He thinks we could both benefit from family therapy." I studied my sister, really looked at her, perhaps for the first time in years. Behind the perfect exterior, I glimpsed uncertainty, insecurity even. The golden child role came with its own burdens, its own impossible expectations. "I'd consider that," I said carefully. "Not immediately, but eventually." It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it was an opening, a small crack in the fortress walls I'd built around my heart where family was concerned. The months that followed brought slow, imperfect progress. Weekly family dinners gradually became less strained. My parents learned to respect the boundaries I established. My father attended anger management therapy, reluctantly at first, then with growing self-awareness. My mother and I began tentative mother-daughter outings that sometimes ended in tension, sometimes in genuine laughter. Healing wasn't linear. There were setbacks, moments when old patterns reasserted themselves, when my father's temper flared or my mother's criticism surfaced. But there was also accountability that had never existed before, a willingness to acknowledge harm and attempt repair. The most profound change, however, wasn't in my family but in myself. I no longer measured my worth by their approval. I no longer diminished my achievements to make others comfortable. I no longer accepted disrespect as the price of belonging. 1 year after the infamous wedding, Nathan and I hosted a gathering at our home, not just immediate family, but the people who had formed my support system throughout the years. My FBI colleagues, Nathan's sister and her family, friends who had stood by me, Emma and her new boyfriend, even a few extended family members who had reached out with genuine interest and connection. As I looked around at this diverse group, this chosen family interspersed with biological relations, I realized something profound. Family isn't just about shared DNA. It's about who shows up, who sees you clearly and loves you anyway, who celebrates your successes without jealousy and supports you through failures without judgment. Sometimes those people share your bloodline. Often they don't. The magic happens when you stop forcing connections where they don't naturally exist and instead nurture the ones that bring mutual joy and growth. Standing in our kitchen, preparing to bring out dessert, I felt Nathan's arms encircle me from behind. "Happy?" he asked simply. I leaned into his embrace, watching through the doorway as my father engaged in animated conversation with Marcus about fishing techniques, while my mother showed Emma photos on her phone. And Allison's musical laugh rang out at something Bradford had said. Not perfect, still complicated, but real in a way it had never been before. Yes, I answered truthfully. I am. If you're watching this and have struggled with toxic family dynamics, I want you to know that your worth isn't determined by those who failed to see it. Building boundaries isn't selfish. It's necessary for healing. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to create distance until genuine change occurs. Have you experienced family relationships healing after setting firm boundaries? Or have you found peace by creating your chosen family instead? Share your stories in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what another viewer needs to hear today. Don't forget to like and subscribe if this resonated with you. And thank you for being part of this supportive community where we can share our journeys of healing and growth together.